Welcome to another podcast from MedVoice. Today's topic will be the opioid epidemic. My name is Alyssa Whitaker.
My name is Tim Malley.
And my name is Carolyn Williams.
Carolyn will be speaking with us today about heroin.
So for my capstone project, my group has decided that we are going to take up the heroin epidemic that's going on in Anne Arundel County and ways that we can ensure that our youth do not try this drug because it's so deadly and using it one time can change your life completely.
So our first question today is, what exactly are opioids?
So specifically, my project deals with heroin, but it's in a class of drugs that are called opioids, which includes your painkillers, codeine, and morphine. Specifically with heroin, it comes from the Asian poppy plant, and it typically appears as white, which is its purest form, but when other chemicals and whenever it's been tampered with, it changes color, so it becomes a gray or a brown.
Okay. Another question for you. How do opioids work, and why are they so addictive?
So, opiates create artificial endorphins in the brain, which produce in the early stages of use warm and good feelings to the user. But over time, opiates trick the brain into stopping the production of these endorphins naturally. At this point, the only way an opiate addict can experience positive feelings is by using the drug of choice. And this process is the reason why they are so addictive.
So what exactly are some of the long and short-term effects of heroin?
So one thing that my group has highlighted throughout our entire time of doing this project is making sure that people know that the long-term or short-term effect, the number one effect of heroin is death. And I don't think that a lot of people truly understand that ultimately by choosing to use this drug, you are going to die. But some of the other effects, short-term, can be nausea, vomiting. Longer-term effects include any type of disease, STIs. It's because you're sharing the needles. So there are similar consequences of uses of other drugs, but one thing that needs to be highlighted the most is that death will come.
Okay. One more question for you. There are multiple causes for the heroin epidemic, but what are some of those causes, and how is it affecting the population?
So we attended the Not My Child event a couple of months ago, and one of the things that they highlighted was that it can come from something as simple as a sports injury, and you can't afford the medicine that you were using before that you became addicted to, the painkiller. So heroin is a cheaper alternative, so you go to heroin instead. Well, now you're addicted. Another thing can be a loss of somebody important in your life that can cause you to use it, just a feeling of emptiness and loneliness, and that's usually what it stems from. And instead of finding a positive outlet, you choose something that will make you feel better in the short term, but not think about what the long-term consequences can be.
So what demographic is mainly affected? If you could, would you say teenagers? Would you say middle-aged adults?
In more recent years, I think that youth are affected a lot more. I think before it got so widely known, I think it affected the older generation, but we see all the time now cases of youth overdosing on heroin. A couple years ago at Glen Burnie, one of the students actually OD'd and died, who was in the same grade as us. So it's becoming more prevalent in the younger generations, which is why we've taken up this initiative to try to prevent them from using this drug.
So that brings me into my next question. What preventative measures would one seek to make sure that you're an individual and their family is not a statistic, to make sure that they're not affected by this horrible drug?
So one thing that we're trying to do is get in touch with the youth by going to the schools and teaching them lessons, and more so not a lesson, because I feel like they don't learn by being taught to. they learn by having conversations with and real life stories. So we go into the schools and we have a Socratic seminar with the students, and we more so just sit back and let them talk and see if it's affected them and let them know how serious it is. Another thing that we're trying to do in particular is start a hashtag on Twitter, hashtag be the change. So you take that initiative from the lessons that we have taught you and the things that we have talked about and spread it through to your family and to your friends and get this thing started. You know, like I say, just continue to tap into the youth. The youth are so involved in social media, so use that to your advantage. Another thing that we're trying to do is team up with the health crisis here in Anne Arundel County to see if we can do more family-oriented things, but our project specifically just targets the youth, so we're trying to tap into as many avenues as we can to make them aware so then they can spread the message themselves.
Alrighty, well, thank you, Carolyn, so much for sitting and talking with us today. That concludes our podcast for today.
And make sure you guys tune in for our next podcast on medical professions.